As you work through this presentation, please feel free to use the pause button wherever appropriate, to rewind whenever you need to, and follow the instructions provided by your teacher. The whole purpose of this style of teaching is to facilitate your ability to work as an independent learner, to work through the tasks, and to use the knowledge you have and the expectations we have of you in history to deliver the work without the assistance of your teacher. Firstly, would you look at the two pictures? What do you think the link is between the two pictures shown? Please write down your initial impressions. Feel free to pause here. Picture 1 on the left shows prisoners on Robben Island in South Africa doing forced labour. If you look closely enough, you'll see that their job is to break stones. Nelson Mandela, in picture 2 on the right, was the first black president of South Africa and was a prisoner on Robben Island for 26 years. He was imprisoned here for his role in trying to end the discrimination against black South Africans. The rules were known as the apartheid laws. Can you please add to or amend your initial comment to explain the connection now between the two pictures? Please pause. In today's lesson, your job will be to study the role and significance of Nelson Mandela and what happened to South Africa after the end of British rule there. Our objectives: to understand the significance of Nelson Mandela in the struggle for equal rights in South Africa. And your outcome is to have read and learnt about the laws used against black South Africans. You will have listened to the story of Nelson Mandela and began to make a judgment of how significant he is in the history of South Africa. South Africa after British rule. South Africa had been part of the British Empire for nearly 300 years. In 1910, various parts controlled by Britain in southern Africa were brought together to form the Union of South Africa. In South Africa, there was a mixture of both white and black inhabitants. The white South Africans, often referred to as Afrikaners, were allowed to vote, but the black Africans, who made up the vast majority of the population, were not allowed to vote. In 1948, after World War II, the National Party won the general election, and they used their victory to bring in a series of laws referred to as apartheid, the translation of which in English means separate but equal. On the right of your picture, you will see two examples of how these laws were enforced. Toilets designated for whites only, and signs beneath in both English and Afrikaans, informing blacks that the facilities were for white people. Your task now is to draw the diagram illustrated below. Read through the information sheet that you have been provided with and pick out as many facts as how blacks and whites were treated differently in South Africa as a result of apartheid. For each one, please be aware again of how both blacks and whites were treated differently. You can use the colours provided on this diagram, if needs be, in order to colour code the information on the reading sheet to identify which parts of the reading are relevant to this particular task. Your extension task will be to identify which apartheid law you think black South Africans would dislike the most and explain your reason why. Please pause. How significant was Nelson Mandela? Please read this page. Please pause. Please continue your reading. Please pause. Please continue your reading and pause. Continue your reading. As you conclude your reading on this particular page, consider the question provided at the bottom. Is South Africa a better place now as a result of the work and history and legacy of Nelson Mandela? Would you please ensure that you answer this question in a PEA paragraph, or, if required, more than one paragraph? Please pause. Based on what you have learnt today, answer the question, how significant was Nelson Mandela? Use the mark scheme below to help you think about how you should structure your answer and what type of information you should include. The mark scheme below ranges from level 4 through to level 7. Please consider your own personal target and set yourself the goal of reaching that target in the attempt to write the answer you are going to do now. The very minimum expectation will be that you will write in a PEA paragraph. You will also need to consider, in saying how important Mandela was, reasons why you may not consider him to be as important. Therefore, you have to consider both sides. Both may require a PEA paragraph before you reach an overall conclusion. Extension task. Nelson Mandela's autobiography is called The Long Walk to Freedom. What do you think this actually means? Would you have called it something else, based upon the work you have done today? Please explain your choice and your reasoning. Please pause. On this slide, I would like you to consider any additional questions you would like to ask. Please write that question and be prepared to present that to your teacher. On a brainstorm, could you additionally tell me 5 key things that you have learnt about Nelson Mandela today? Alternatively, you could tweet this response in no more than 25 words. Please pause. The follow-up to this particular part of your learning will be to study a film about the work of Nelson Mandela. The film is called Invictus. Your job will be to watch the film and again revisit your answer as to how significant you think Nelson Mandela was as a leader of South Africa. You should therefore make notes on the film in your book, identifying why you think he is both significant and why he may not be considered as significant. Please pause. Finally, your job will be to revisit your question on Nelson Mandela. Determine whether your original answer was correct and consider whether or not your opinion has changed. Again, you can revisit the extension question relating to the title of his autobiography. Should it be named another title?